Good evening from New York. Rick Perry appears to be all hat, no cattle, at least when it comes to his Tea Party credentials. Remember how he was bragging about his jobs record in Texas, how he'd managed to create all these jobs in the state, even during the economic downturn?
There have been some over on the left that said the fact is that those 40% of the jobs created in America since the 9th of June, since the June of 2009 was just luck. Well, Mr. President, America's crisis is not bad luck. It's bad policies from Washington, D.C. Jobs come by keeping taxes low, by controlling spending, by reforming tort laws and ensuring that regulations are fair and predictable.
Yeah, except that most of those jobs were government jobs, funded at least partially by the federal stimulus money, which Perry once predicted could lead Texas to secede at an anti-tax Tea Party rally. Now, clearly, Perry has no trouble railing against taxes and the Recovery Act while happily accepting the taxpayer-funded help in the state of Texas. Now it may be happening again. On Wednesday, Perry spoke at the Politics and Eggs breakfast in New Hampshire. But it's an interaction that Perry had afterward that's got a lot of people talking today.
Bank of America, we will help you
out. Wait, what? Did an official from Bank of America just sidle by a Republican presidential candidate all cloak and dagger style and say he would help him out?
Bank of America, we will help you out.
Yep, that's what happened. It turns out that Bank of America, that official is James Mahoney, who sits on the board of directors for the New England Council, which sponsored the Politics and Eggs event. Bank of America issued this statement today. Quote, Bank of America does not endorse presidential candidates. The reference was about following up on the substance of the speech about job creation and economic growth. What Bank of America did not mention in its statement is that Mahoney is chairman of Bank of America's New Hampshire PAC. Politico broke that news tonight, saying while Mahoney doesn't appear to be a registered lobbyist, he is a chairman of Bank of America's New Hampshire PAC, an influence post focused on dispensing political cash, not a policy post. Surprise, surprise. If the line Bank of America will help you out was in a movie script, it would take place in a darkened parking lot in the middle of the night, kind of like this.
They follow the money. What do you mean? Where? Just follow the money.
Don't worry. We'll be following the money and campaign donations as this race goes on. But here's what we do know. Bank of America has already helped out Rick Perry. Aside from donating more than $125,000 to Perry's gubernatorial campaigns, the bank bailout, which helped Bank of America to the tune of $45 billion, handed Perry, not related to me, the political ammunition for his 2010 primary campaign against Senator Kay, as he called her, bailout Hutchison.
I could not give a blank check for $700 million to anyone. I wouldn't have given it to Ronald Reagan.
Just one day later, Senator Hutchison bailed on Texans and voted for the $700 billion Wall Street bailout.
Mr. Hatch, aye. Mrs. Hutchison. Mrs. Hutchison, aye.
Senator Hutchison, voting with Washington since 1993.
I can't wait for the ad that says, Governor Perry, benefiting from Washington in 2011. And just this week, Bank of America has announced it will lay off an additional 3,500 employees, another gut punch to an already struggling economy. One of the reasons Bank of America is struggling is its never-ending stream of mortgage lawsuits. And all Rick Perry's offering is a platform of fewer taxes, less regulation, less consumer protection, and more risk. Wall Street would just love another helping of that. Joining me now, Washington Post columnist E.J. Dionne. Nice to see you, E.J.
Good to be with you. Happy to help you out.
Exactly. Now, look, I am assuming there's nothing actually illegal happening in that video, but from the moment I saw it, I thought, wow, this feels unsavory. It feels icky. What should we be thinking as we see that interaction?
Well, I think we saw on videotape a kind of transaction that happens quite a lot in politics. Mike Kinsley, the great political writer, once said that the things we should look out for are not the things that are illegal in politics, but the things that are legal in politics. I think there are a couple of things here. First, once again, we see the dangers opened up by that Citizens United decision, which will make it easier than ever for corporations to have more and more influence on our politics. It just takes the lid off and the regulations off. And secondly, I think you're seeing a kind of hypocrisy on the right where a lot of them ran against the bailout, but they are also opposed to the kinds of regulations that would make it less likely that we'll need a bailout the next time. I think you've got this odd situation for the Obama administration where progressives think they were kind of too soft on the banks, and yet all these folks who did very well in the last couple of years thinks Obama's too tough on them, and so they're turning to folks like Rick Perry.
So let me ask you about that Citizens United decision just a bit more, because I know many of us shuddered about this. And then when we heard Republican presidential candidate Mitt Romney say corporations are people or persons, it felt like, oh, there's Citizens United walking around on the campaign trail. But is there a reason to believe that that decision should benefit one party over the other? Or is it just sort of a problem of big money in politics in general?
Well, it is a problem with big money in politics in general, but on balance, most of the time, obviously, the big money has been more on the Republican side than the Democratic side. But when I heard we were talking about this today, the best reply to Mitt Romney corporations or people actually came from Justice Stevens in that Citizens United case. He said, although they make enormous contributions to our society, corporations aren't actually members of it. And I love this line: corporations have no consciences, no beliefs, no feelings, no thoughts, no desires. They are not themselves members of we the people, by whom and for whom our Constitution was established. And I would love to emblazon that on a billboard up in New Hampshire before the election's over.
Might be a slightly complicated billboard, but I hear you. Let me suggest this, though. When we look at Rick Perry's economic policy, really the vision that he has laid out prior to this exchange with the Bank of America representative, it seems like what Perry wants to do is fewer taxes, less regulation. Is that the sort of thing that Bank of America and other sort of enormous banks want? Is that why we might have heard that whispering moment between them?
Well, two things. One is I think it's pretty common for people who head PACs, or this gentleman wasn't a lobbyist, but people who are lobbyists, to say that sort of thing to politicians. I do think it happens all the time. But the answer is yes. I think that the corporate world is trying to, does not like regulation. It doesn't think that regulations, whether to protect mortgage holders or to protect consumers, is in their interest. So we've had this fight going on in the country, since the time of Teddy Roosevelt, and we will continue to have it. And our elections are designed to settle the question each time about whether we think there ought to be some rules here, which paradoxically, by the way, protect the honest corporations who would actually like to care about the public interest and the common good.
E.J. Dionne of the Washington Post, I appreciate you making some good sense of that very interesting clip for us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Good to be with you.
Thanks.